Out Liquor is your place to buy a case. Stock up and save when you shop the lowest prices available every day at Outlet Liquor. You never have to wait for a sale. The more you buy, the more you save. Only at Outlet Liquor.
What's your outlet?
What is up, everybody? Welcome to the Crowd Assist podcast, brought to you by Outlet Liquor, New York's only outlet liquor. When you need to stock up, it's the place to buy a case. What's your outlet? There, 2152 George Urban Boulevard. Meerkat, the Crowd Assist podcast today. It's me and you, your friend Jake, here with Meerkat, as always. We're going to lock into the AFC North. We're going to look at some of the Bills' opponents coming up for this year in the next couple weeks. AFC North, I don't know about you. This is my favorite year. That the favorite combination is the AFC North, NFC North teams. Just all the history you get with these teams, the closeness of it. It brings out some geographic rivalry more often. I know there's some, like, as much as we commiserate with Browns fans, there's a little bit of a Browns-Bills rivalry there. Obviously, Steelers, those are always exciting games. And when you talk about Lamar versus Josh Allen, I mean, say less right there. And then obviously some big games with the Bengals over our time here. But Meerkat, how are you feeling today? Just in general, looking forward to talking some Bills football here in this mid-June evening.
Right? No, you hit the nail on the head earlier when you were first talking about, like, the divisions. The AFC North is one of those divisions outside of the AFC East, obviously, because of the Bills and everything. But AFC and NFC North, so much history there. The teams are close to us. It's always fun to, talk about those teams, follow what's going on. The AFC North this year is not short of any, storylines, big moves, tons of stuff to talk about with them. So I'm glad we're covering them today. But we got a long summer ahead of us. It's going to be nice to talk Bills, but we got to talk some other football too, guys. We got to cover some stuff. So we're covering the AFC North today. It's going to be a good one.
Yeah, and so just looking, like, before we get into any of these teams, just looking at the odds right now, we're talking about this division. It's going to be a war zone all year. The Baltimore Ravens are the favorites on most books. At FanDuel right here, it has them at plus 175. The Bengals right behind at plus 200. The Browns literally right behind there at plus 230. And then the Steelers down there at plus 850. But, man, like, would anybody be shocked if by week 15 the Steelers are either in first place or in contention for first place in the AFC North, knowing what we know about their infrastructure and everything else? I don't think so. And this division last year was literally separated by 2 games. It's going to be a battle all the way through. So let's just go alphabetical order. We'll start with the Baltimore Ravens. The Baltimore Ravens had basically a year from hell last year. I don't know. I think it was 30 plus guys that ended up on the IR. All their running backs basically ended up on the IR.
Not good. All their cornerbacks.
All their corners. Yeah, it was a mess. So this year, and we'll start with the draft. They added Kyle Hamilton with the safety. Tyler Linderbaum was a guy that was, highly touted coming out as an offensive lineman. Took a swing on David Ojabo, your boy from Michigan.
My boy, let's go. Great pick there.
Had 17 fourth-round picks. So one of those guys you're probably going to hit.
Isaiah Likely, good pick there. Second tight end they took in the 4th round, but good pick with Isaiah Likely. I liked him.
And that's something I want to bring up because there was some talk today about there was a nice little story on Go Long TD from our friend Ty Dunn about Baltimore and just Greg Roman's system that I want to touch on a little bit with you here. But so let's go through a little bit of the free agency. They didn't go big in free agency. Re-signed Calais Campbell, that's a big deal. Signing Kyle Fuller to add to that secondary depth that they needed. Signing Marcus Williams to a 5-year, $70 million contract, that's a big deal. Brought Mike Davis in, then some other depth pieces. So
good value with, like, the Morgan Moses deal there. He's a solid offensive tackle there. 3 years, $15 million. But yeah, nothing major.
Nothing major. Kyle Hamilton is obviously like the gem of this group. That is a steal at 14, and especially going to this team and this defense, we know what they're capable of, especially with secondary talent. But looking ahead to next year, Mir, like, what is the biggest storyline that sticks out to you for the Baltimore Ravens? As they obviously had a disappointing year. We talked about the injuries. There's a looming Lamar Jackson contract situation that is going to hang over this whole season. And it's a weird breakdown. Like the Hollywood Brown trade's really weird when it happened, and still feels kind of weird going after. So what is the biggest thing you're looking to for Baltimore this year?
For Baltimore, it's just to see how they play out with their offense. You brought up Greg Roman's system. But, they lose Hollywood Brown. And then at receiver, they have some guys I like, but they don't really have anyone too proven. Like, I want to see what Rashad Bateman can do now in a prime role. Devin Duvernay is another good young guy there. Tylan Wallace, I like pre-draft. I want to see how they use those receivers, because without Hollywood Brown now, I mean, things are a little different there, but they have a lot of young, promising guys who I really like, and Lamar Jackson can get the most out of his receivers. He's not a guy who needs the quarterback-friendly receiver. He is he's friendly to receivers as a quarterback. He works with any type of guy, and I think the guys they have right now are unproven but tons of promise. And Greg Roman's gonna have a lot of fun because these are super athletic guys. And let's just hope they all stay healthy, because Baltimore last year, as a healthy team, dangerous.
Dude, like, it was just weak. Like, seeing that before the season, just running back after running back go down, and knowing how much they rely on this run game. And it wasn't only the running backs, it was everything. It was so sad to see for a team that, the year before, a couple years before, went 14-2. Year before, gets to the divisional round, goes to Buffalo. Obviously, we know what happens there. We were happy about that. But a team that's been right there on the precipice in the elite of the elite in the league, and just ravaged by injuries, which happens. I mean, that's par for sometimes in the NFL, the injury bug just hits you harder than others, and it felt like that was just the case last year for this team. I do want to talk about this Go Long article, because it was talking about Greg Roman's offense in general, and it was, I don't remember who they were interviewing. It was a former receiver, but talking about the fact that they don't do a lot, like comparing it to Sean Payton's offense and not putting receivers in one-on-one positions to get open as much. I'm blanking on who was in this article, but mentioning that it favors tight ends and big receivers more often than it does actual wide receivers. And when you see things like that come out, and it's something we obviously have experience with Greg Roman and his offense, and it was a very run-heavy offense out of there in Buffalo too, with LaShawn McCoy and Tyrod Taylor and such. Mm-hmm. Does that worry you at all going into this year? That, I mean, they've restocked their weapons a little bit. Hopefully, just Lamar is just healthy and these running backs are healthy. They can get that running game back on the ground, but is there a limitation that you see in the passing game, or do you think Lamar is able to overcome that? Like, this team was 14-2 a couple years ago. Like, you're complaining about Greg Roman's offense, whatever, but clearly it's been able to be successful when they can get their guys on the field.
No, 100%. And I think the big question mark is Lamar going to be playing for that big contract? Are they going to give it to him before the season starts? That's a huge storyline. Like, you're not hearing much about it right now, and I feel like it should be talked about more. Lamar's earned that contract extension, and it feels like he's coming into this year having to play for it. If they lock him up before the season, let him be confident and stuff, I don't think, getting that money changes him at all. I think it motivates him, if anything. But coming into this season, I don't know, maybe he's upset if he's not re-signed, but if he has to play for that contract, he's going to ball out, even if he's upset. Mark Andrews is enough for him, and I brought up the receivers. I'm excited to see what they can do, because they're exciting prospects, but right now that's pretty much what they are, is prospects. And they loaded up on tight end in the draft, getting Isaiah Likely, and I forgot who the other guy they took in the fourth round was, but they use a lot of 2 tight end sets in that offense with Greg Roman, even 3 tight end sets. So if receivers lacking, they are going to pick it up somewhere else, and it might be out of the backfield as well. If they stay healthy, we're going to get to see J.K. Dobbins, which is exciting. I think he's a bit overrated, but maybe just because I hate where he went to college. Gus Edwards, though, my absolute boy. The most underrated running back, like, in the entire NFL. Last year, I was taking him everywhere I could, every fantasy league, and he gets hurt.
I had a fantasy. I want to see one of my dynasty leagues. I had Dobbins, and then picked up Gus Edwards after Dobbins got hurt, and then I was just like, "What the fuck is happening right now?" Like, it's just tough, and it's tough for the team.
I was starting Tyson. What was it? Tyson Wallace.
You grabbed Tyson.
Tyson Williams. Yeah.
And we all thought we were like that he's gonna go off no matter what. It doesn't matter. But this team it was just a tough year, and that's why I think people like the odds obviously don't show that. They're still division favorites right now going into the year. Big question marks with Lamar, and just going into a season unknown with your franchise quarterback is a weird thing to have in the locker room. I feel like, and those are like we're never gonna be able to quantify that ourselves on this podcast, but it is definitely going to have an effect on them this year. How much, it remains to be seen. But I feel like this team is definitely in the right spot as the favorites going into the AFC North. I know Cincinnati took it last year. I know they went to the Super Bowl. I would still personally take Lamar Jackson over Joe Burrow. I've seen Joe Burrow placed over him in some AFC quarterback rankings. I'm taking Lamar every day. If you want to say Burrow, I wouldn't say it's a bad argument, obviously, but that's just where I am personally. So it remains to be seen. It's going to be a really, really interesting year for the Ravens. Anything else on Baltimore before we move on to the defending champions, Cincinnati Bengals?
Other than them being, a threat to the Bills, I do want to see them be healthy. I want to see that AFC North competitive. I want to see what some of these guys on that roster can do. As a football fan.
Yeah, not as a Bills fan.
We're talking AFC North today, guys. I'm a football fan. Rob Lowe throwing on my NFL hat right now.
I really can't pick them. We had our schedule draft a couple weeks ago, and I picked that Bills-Ravens game very early because I'm very excited about that game in general. I'm shocked that it wasn't a prime time. Like, that seemed prime for like Monday Night Football or Thursday Night Football for me. So the fact that I get it here. That was one of those
schedule leaks for Thanksgiving, I believe. They said it was going to be.
Which that would have been incredible. Like, I love Baltimore. Baltimore also underrated. One of my favorite places to watch a game on TV. I just love the chain fences that they like banging their stuff on and everything. It just looks like a great energy, and those fans are always going crazy. But let's get into the Cincinnati Bengals, the defending AFC champions, as we said earlier, plus 200. In some books, they're tied on PointsBet. They're tied with Baltimore at plus 200 as the favorite, but most books slightly behind Baltimore, but right up there. I mean, it's so neck and neck with both these teams at the top of the thing, and I deserve. Another Michigan boy, Dax Hill, was their first round pick.
Who I wanted the Bills to take. Great pick. I'm happy. I'm just happy he snuck into the first round. He's a great piece for that defense. He's so versatile with what he can do, and you pair him with a guy like Jesse Bates. I mean, let him learn under him. Yeah, he's going to be sick addition to that defense. Something they need because their secondary might have got a lot of picks in the playoffs last year, but they were literally all deflections.
They needed talent back there, and especially, I mean, we're talking about these AFC quarterbacks, and we're going to talk about it in this division too. Like, you're going to see outstanding quarterback play every week in the AFC, basically. So you need to load up in that secondary. Dax Hill was a great pick. Cam Taylor-Britt was another popular Bills second-round pick as well, as a corner out of Nebraska there. Free agency-wise, they didn't. I mean, not a big splash really. Re-signing important guys. They signed Alex Kappa, guard, 4-year, $35 million deal. That's a huge signing for them, I think. And Leal Collins, trying to address that offensive line a little bit. Ted Karras,
Hayden Hurst too.
Hayden Hurst, a sneaky pick, pickup for them. Because last year, obviously, I just feel like with Burrow, like anybody that is a weapon on the offensive side is going to have upside, and they lost Uzomah and everything. So Hayden Hurst might be his safety target going there.
Yeah, Hayden Hurst has never had that chance in Baltimore behind Mark Andrews and every other tight end that Baltimore loves to stockpile. So him getting a shot with a premier level quarterback, I'm excited to see that.
So what are you looking forward to here? What's the biggest storyline for you and the Bengals coming up this year?
For me, it's just it not being a fluke for them. It's, I don't think it's a question of Joe Burrow's legit or not. I think Joe Burrow is a legit franchise quarterback. But is the team as a whole, is Zach Taylor, are these guys, are they prepared to go to a Super Bowl? Are they prepared to make another playoff run in the AFC again? I'm leaning no. And that's not to fault of Joe Burrow or that offense. I mean, Jamar Chase, absolutely incredible. T. Higgins, maybe one of the most underrated receivers in the entire NFL. Tyler Boyd, you can say he's underrated as well. And they have a good offensive line. Joe Mixon, the dude just scores touchdowns. Chris Evans had been in that backfield with P. Ryan, another Michigan guy. We love all the blue in Cincinnati. But that offense should be able to carry their own weight. I just don't have a lot of faith in this defense. And
that's true.
AFC North, it could be cannibalistic, kind of like how everyone's expecting the AFC West to be this year. It's always going to be cannibalistic, honestly, in the AFC North because of the rivalries between these teams.
Well, and it was last year, too. I mean, like we said, 2 8-9 teams, a 9-8, and a 10-7. Like, they beat the shit out of each other.
And I brought it up, too, with, the Bengals got super lucky on that playoff run. They, luck stats, they were, one of the luckiest teams ever in the playoffs. Yep. Some of the interceptions, like the one game-clinching one, deflections, these aren't skill plays. These aren't, you're making the play. It's luck. The ball's bouncing and landing to you, basically, can they replicate luck? No, but are they a legit team and can they compete? I think they can, but I don't know if they can hold it together for a whole season or, rely on that luck factor.
And think about the playoff run too, like that Raiders matchup. It was right down to the wire. Like that game could have went either way. The Titans game was right down to the wire as well. Even that Chiefs game really came down to we were talking as much about coming out of that game as much as what the hell were the Chiefs doing in the second half, as much as we were praising the Bengals. I think that's where a lot of Andy Reid conversations started up again and everything else. So yeah, they were extremely lucky on the way there. That's nothing to take away from the talent they have. Obviously on the offensive side of the ball, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins at the receiver position are just incredible. Joe Burrow is really one of the elite quarterbacks. But yeah, like you said, and there's always, it feels like every year at least one of the Super Bowl teams slips up too, right? It feels like one of the Super Bowl hangover is real for one of those teams. And the Bengals seem primed for it. And that doesn't mean that their record, I'm not saying they're going to be 5-12 this year or something, but all it takes is they were a 10-7 team last year. It's not like they were blowing anybody out of the water. So they could easily slip up 2 games, be 8-9 and be on the outside looking in. I feel like the margin for error for the Bengals is so much slower that I love the hype and I think they're deserving of it. And I think that Burrow is deserving of it and everything else. But with the competition still in this division, whether you're talking about Baltimore, who's the favorite, or Cleveland, when we talk about them, whatever their situation is going to be, they're going to be a tough team. And Pittsburgh is Pittsburgh. I'm never going to count out the Steelers going into the season no matter what. And it's just, I don't think people should be penciling them in the top 3 of the AFC or the class of the AFC as much as I have seen them. They can be. They have the potential to be, but I don't think that's their median right now. That's more their ceiling. You hit the nail on the head with that, and they're kind of just relying on Daxton Hill or Cam Taylor-Britt, the guys we brought up earlier, becoming a starting corner, a good corner. Dax Hill, kind of an undefined position guy, but he is good enough at corner or safety to play either. He's probably more of a safety, versatile piece. You move around the field, but he's going to be forced into a cornerback role. So you really got to hope one of those two step up there, because we saw the memes constant last year with Eli Apple getting absolutely torched. Chidobe Awuzie is a fine cornerback, but he's not a number 1 guy. Eli Apple is your number 2 corner right now. You brought this guy back. That's not good. You're really relying on these guys. Mike Hilton, another fine guy, but you saw you need top end secondary talent, and right now it's just Jesse Bates. How much can one safety really do? Yeah, they're asking a lot for that secondary. They're asking a lot from that secondary to improve a great amount, and especially with the way the AFC looks this year, it's going to be a tough ask. But I'm interested to see. I still think that I honestly think they're a playoff team. I would have said the Browns earlier, but I think the Browns are a mess. We'll get into them in a second. So I'm picking, there's got to be 2 teams that come out of this division. I think it's too good. And I'd lean towards the Ravens and Bengals, but I think the Ravens are going to be, it's as much as me thinking the Bengals are going to kind of regress to the mean or stay stagnant at that 10-7 range, as also as much as I think the Ravens are a walking 11-6, 12-5 if they're healthy, just because Lamar is that good. And it's not even the big games. The Ravens could lose all their big games this year, lose big games to the Bengals and Browns and whatever else. But they're gonna beat the Ravens. What we've learned is that Lamar is too much for overmatched competition, right? When you're in a game against a team like the Houston Texans or something, they're not gonna just beat Lamar. It really would take the Ravens messing up, because he's such a unique challenge to all these offenses. So that's where I see the Bengals kind of slotting right in, battling behind there. Let's get into the Browns. We got to touch on Deshaun Watson, and I'll just kick us off here, Mir. If you want to jump in after, that's fine. The New York Times article just came out yesterday, 2 days ago. I encourage you all to go read it. I think it's still up there for free. There's now 24 allegations against Deshaun Watson. 66 different massage therapists is what the report is that he's had in the last year and a half. The Houston Texans organization allegedly helping support those things. I think best case scenario for Deshaun, he's manipulated this situation with his status as a quarterback and manipulating these women under the guise of wanting to support, black businesses, like it said in the article, and best case scenario, has showing sociopathic tendencies. Worst case scenario, he has committed serial sexual assault, and it's a shame that the Browns are employing him. So I think that's without said. I don't know if there's anything else you want to add there, but obviously it's horrible to keep reading these things. I feel for those women and everything else. It's also just brought me to the fact that the Browns need to be held accountable for this too. Like they said they did all their due diligence. They said they did all this investigation and everything. Either they didn't do it or they just ignored it and just decided to take the risk. And either way, I think it's a bad look for Browns. And I feel bad for Browns fans. I have a lot of I went to school in Northeast Ohio. I know a lot of Browns fans friends. Some of my best friends are diehard Browns fans. And they're just like, what do we do in this situation? Like, I just feel for them more than anything, because that's a fan base that doesn't deserve this. And it's a shame. It's a shame that we have to be talking about this rather than just football going into the season.
No, it just shows you the NFL's a business. The Browns didn't give a shit. The Browns had their chance to do their due diligence, and like you said, they either ignored it or they just didn't. The Houston Texans supporting what he was doing. And it's just like one of those things where people are like, oh, well, people are just trying to get money on it. Whatever you want to think. It's just like, even if 1/5 of these allegations are true, this man should not be, and this man should be behind bars. We won't get into it more than that, but the fact that the NFL hasn't suspended him or even said that they've been investigating it further or anything like that, it just shows you football's a business. I do think he ends up suspended, commissioner suspension. I think it does end up happening before things, continue to snowball, because I think more and more things are going to come out. Shame on the Browns.
Yeah, I do think that they are. I've seen Albert Breer and other prominent insiders say that it could be a year-long suspension, and that feels more than okay with me. He would have to do that again.
Minimum. Minimum.
So we're gonna
the hit back. Sorry, not to harp on this, but that makes you feel like the Browns are guilty in this. Outside of everything we just talked about, the way the Browns structured his contract, they were basically expecting him to not play football this year. Yeah,
what does he have? Like his base salary is like $1, like something crazy.
I think it's $1 million.
Like
I'm pretty sure it's just like a flat $1 million with no bonus stuff, and then it just explodes over the rest of the contract. The Browns were expecting something like this to happen. They were expecting him to be suspended, and they literally structured his contract around it.
Exactly. It's a shame on an organization which I would 2 months ago before this trade would have been praising how they built the team even without a quarterback, because you look at the rest of this roster. I mean, we'll switch into football gear here a little bit too, but it's hard to kind of predict without knowing the quarterback situation, obviously. But the roster around the quarterback is really damn good, and that was the case last year too. Like last year, the biggest thing that was holding them up was the quarterback play. Obviously, there's all the drama surrounding Baker Mayfield. There's still drama surrounding Baker Mayfield. He's still on the roster, but he's not going to be with the Browns. Who knows what's going to happen with him going forward? So I guess we can assume Jacoby Brissett's going to get some starts this year, no matter what, whether Watson is suspended for part of the season or the entire season, which is not the worst backup to have. I think he's a serviceable guy, and that's is it really that much worse than Baker Mayfield if Jacoby Brissett's playing? That's a sad state of it for Baker, but it might.
Do the Browns hold him hostage?
That's what. See, do you
force him to play? He's a better option than Jacoby. No defense to Jacoby, and they hold all the cards right now. If he really wants to leave, he's going to be taking a pay cut. He might not even start, even if he goes to a bad team. Seattle seems fine with Drew Lock right now, and there's not too many other options. They might just hold him there. If he was hurt last year, they made him play hurt. I understand his frustrations with the league, but he's still got to prove himself. Baker's not a sure thing. He's not someone a team wants to invest $20 to $25 million a year, and let alone 15 plus. And I feel like this is kind of a prime opportunity if Deshaun doesn't play for him to show. I would feel awful for him. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying, but if he showed and he played for the Browns this year if needed, and he played well and he didn't, voice a ton of frustration or cause a scene or any drama, that proves a lot to teams too. This is a bad spot for Baker, and I still think there's a chance he ends up just stuck on the Browns.
Do you dip into Browns Twitter at all and see the Baker arguments? Because I do see those all the time, and it's chaos there. Every day is chaos about Baker Mayfield.
Browns Twitter is bad.
It's staunch Baker supporters who are going to ride and die with him, or people that are
it was Bill's Twitter pre-2018.
Really, yeah, it really is.
Yeah.
It's a mess with that Baker situation. The whole quarterback room, just a mess for them. But the rest of this roster, that's the thing is with the Browns, there's a reason that they're still plus 230. There's a reason that, people are still potentially predicting them to win the AFC North and be a Super Bowl contender. This roster is stacked. I mean, the wide receiver position is still a little iffy. They added Amari Cooper. We'll see what he has
Big
left.
move.
I still think he's got a lot in the tank, honestly. Jakeem Grant, I think it's an underrated signing.
I was going to say that.
Jakeem
Incredible signing for the value they got him at.
3 years, $13 million. I think he's going to be great for them. Re-signing Njoku, they got Clowney back.
Not a huge David Bell guy, though. Speaking receivers, taking him, what was he their first pick in the draft?
Yeah, he was.
Or no, he was in the third round. They had 3 third-rounders. Those were their first 3, but he was the third of the 3 in the first round. Donovan Peoples-Jones is your number 2 receiver. I don't love that. Maybe Anthony Schwartz can prove he can do more than just sprint fast in a straight line. But yeah, I think that's one spot you said you got to watch out for. Definitely.
The biggest deal of the offseason besides the Watson trade is obviously Denzel Award, 5 years, $100 million. That's a big risk to me even as well, because it's a guy that hasn't been completely healthy his whole time in his career. And they're projecting his ability. I mean, when he's on the field, he's worth the money. He is one of the best cornerbacks in the league, but it's the staying on the field, best ability is availability type deal. So there's a lot of this is a roundabout way to say there's a lot of question marks surrounding the Cleveland Browns coming into the season. As always, I feel like every year there's always just Browns chaos, whether they're a good team like in recent years, or they're the joke of the NFL going 0-16 or 1-31 in 2 years. We're always sitting here talking about the Browns in the offseason. So credit to them for always, I guess, I don't know, just staying relevant, bad or worse, whatever. It's kind of crazy. But do you think that despite all this chaos and everything else, is there a way that you see them winning the AFC North? Because I just feel like this locker room it's got to be chaotic in there, as much as everybody's putting on a brave face and everything else right now and trying to be just, focus on football, whatever else. There's got to be taking a toll with all the drama surrounding them.
100%. And I think it's Browns' division if, God forbid, Deshaun plays, or if Baker is held hostage. The 2 bad scenarios happening, Browns probably win the division. It'll be Browns-Ravens, I think, really competing for it. Now that this isn't going to be an absolute war zone this year in the AFC North, but this roster, you said it a couple times, is absolutely stacked. JOK kind of settling into his role now is going to be huge. They convinced Jadeveon Clowney for the first time in his career to sign a second contract with a team.
Crazy.
He even though it was 1 year, he stayed. Myles Garrett, absolute freak, as we know. Yeah. And they have guys just all over the field who make plays. Like Grant Delpit's an underrated guy. You brought Denzel Award, is just locked down when he's healthy. Greg Newsome, as a rookie last year, was solid. And I think coming into his second year as a guy who could take massive leaps and bounds. And the offense is, if the receiver position set, which you brought up Jakeem Grant, I think there's a good chance he ends up like the number 2 receiver on this team behind Amari Cooper, who I like Amari Cooper. I think he is a number 1 receiver. And you look at the backfield, absolutely stacked with Hunt and Chubb. And we saw Dearness Johnson even last year. That was fun.
I'm high on Jerome Ford
weapons.
too as a 5th round pick. I really liked him at Cincinnati, and the way we've seen like you just mentioned Dearness Johnson, the way we saw him blow up last year. I think Ford, if he's given opportunities, could do the same thing. This is the best offensive line in football too. Like that's where you got to start too with this offense. Is they are just whoever's going to be at quarterback is going to have time to make plays. That's their biggest thing. The receiving core, I'm worried about it a little bit. I like Peoples-Jones a little bit. I'm not as high on David Bell, just like you. I think that he's kind of like in the Drake London mold where he didn't separate as much as I liked in college and just made athletic plays at Purdue on guys, and that's kind of where he was. But Peoples-Jones is okay. I think Cooper has a lot left in the tank, though. I think that was just a mess and him wanting to get out of Dallas. Anything else on the Browns, though?
No, other than that, I think they overpaid for Njoku. I know tight end's going to start
they
blowing up, and I know and the deal, when you actually look at the deal, not just what was it, the 4 years for $60 million or whatever, when you look at like the nitty-gritty of the deal, it's actually not nearly as bad as it seems. Kind of like the Von Miller deal. But it's it's still an overpay, and it's going to just mess up like the market. People are already talking about Dawson Knox's extension that's looming. We'll see what happens there, but why did you have to do that, Browns? Why?
It was a shocker to me, like a legit shocker that they spent more money on it. After the Hooper deal that they signed him to, and it didn't work out, they're like, you know what we should do? Just go back at it with the tight ends and paying them a bunch of money. But you know what, the Browns still have like $40 million in cap space this year too. Like I saw that cap sheet the other day. It's crazy. I don't understand how.
Who's their GM? Andrew Berry?
Yeah, he is a wizard. That man, and that's the thing is I would love. In a normal scenario, I'd be sitting here praising the Browns organization for their team building and be like, it's only a matter of time. But you can't. It's not a normal situation with them going into the year. And I believe sports karma and karma in real life will come to roost for the Browns, and they're not going to be successful. So that's why I wouldn't bet on the Browns. No betting advice. Don't bet. You'll feel bad about yourself betting on the Browns. Don't do it.
Don't do it.
Pittsburgh Steelers, the heavy underdogs in this division, and it's still shocking to me that they're even at a plus 850, plus 900 range. Biggest offseason additions and free agency. Our boy Mitchell going to have a chance to battle for the starting quarterback position against their first pick in the draft, Kenny Pickett, the hometown kid. The most interesting quarterback battle by far in the league there.
Yep.
Also their big sign, they obviously signed Levi Wallace from the Buffalo Bills there. Just kind of, they took a flyer on Miles Jack, who's been injured a lot, but I mean, if he's healthy and you think about linebackers and what they can do in Pittsburgh, that could be a huge thing for them. A lot of depth signings in free agency, but really the draft, Kenny Pickett, obviously the quarterback of the future, most likely. George Pickens he had first round grades on some people. They got him in the second round. They also got Calvin Austin in the fourth round, who people were high on. I think that's a huge steal too. So yeah, what are you looking at for the Steelers? The first question I want to ask you is, who do you think is starting at quarterback week 1 for the Pittsburgh Steelers? Because that's the biggest question going into the year.
I think it's going to be Trubisky. Trubisky was a good quarterback, not great for the Chicago Bears. He was a good quarterback. He wasn't bad. And, a year under Josh Allen, the very limited action we saw him in scenarios that you can't really rate him off of, looked good for him still, which is at least he looked good. You can't ask for much more in the spots he was in. And Kenny Pickett, I'm just not high on at all. I don't see it. I know Steelers are desperate for a quarterback. They go for the hometown guy. I don't think he's the best quarterback that's going to end up out of this draft if some of the other guys even get their shots, looking at like Corral and Malik, my boy Malik Willis. But just a weird scenario. I think they have to start with Trubisky because I don't see Pickett at like blowing them away and winning the job in the preseason or summer. Yeah. I think they go safe, start with Trubisky, they wait for a chance of Trubisky to fuck up a few times and then give Pickett his shot, which I think Pickett is going to squander. I don't know. I'm not rooting against the guy. I just hated the pick for them. Absolutely hated it. And I think I like Mitch. So we're rooting for Mitch. We're on this side.
Yes, sir. I'm very much rooting for Mitch. I was so excited that he got signed to this organization.
Mm-hmm.
because I think they'll be able to set him up for success. And like you said, he was a good quarterback in Chicago. There's a lot of Matt Nagy stink that was on him.
Yeah.
And I said it the other day on Twitter to somebody. My favorite pastime in Chicago now is when I'm in Ubers, just asking their opinion on Matt Nagy and seeing them go off for like 5 minutes. When I came home from Buffalo, I was in a wedding this weekend, was back home, taking my Uber home from O'Hare, and I was just talking sports with this guy for like 40 minutes, just everything. Like we were talking White Sox, Bulls, Bears, whatever. And I was like, all right, man, just tell me, like, was it Mitch or Nagy? And he's like, it's Nagy 100,000 times. We love Mitch here. Don't let anybody tell you different. Like that was exactly what he said. And that's basically been the sentiment from everybody else. So I truly believe that with Mitch. I think it's definitely the safe play. Start Mitch, start the experienced guy. This team has a chance to win. This team has a chance to make the playoffs. They were 8-9 last year. And honestly, Mitch is going to provide better quarterback play than Ben Roethlisberger did. They were walking Ben Roethlisberger out there and trying to tell us he was still a starting quarterback in the league. And it was apparent to all of us that he just didn't have it anymore. Whether he had the smarts, he had the intelligence, but the arm just wasn't there. Mitch has all the physical tools. Like Mitch can throw the ball on a rope. He's going to be coached up better than he ever has been. And this is still a good receiving core. I mean, obviously they added Pickens and Calvin Austin, as we just mentioned in the draft, but they still have Deontay Johnson, who, if he can stay healthy, is a really, really good wide receiver. I think Chase Claypool gets a lot of shit just for his, whatever. People just don't like Chase Claypool for a lot of reasons. I think he's not as good I think he's not as good as some people think, but I still think he's solid, and especially in a role with those four receivers, I think that they can do some damage there. We obviously know what Najee Harris is going to bring to the table. He's a stud running back, and they love to do that. I just think that plus 850 is crazy for them in this division. I think it's because of the quarterback play, the uncertainty, and you look at the other three quarterbacks. If say even if Watson doesn't get suspended for the whole season, if he's there for half the season, and then it's Burrow and Jackson, obviously the Steelers situation is the most dire out of those four quarterback situations, the least secure. But I don't think that means that they can't piece it together and be a playoff contender. And this is a division that's going to be, like you mentioned, is going to cannibalize itself this season. Why can't they be a part of that? I mean, why can't they be getting those? I have no doubt that I could see the Steelers being 3-3 in the division and taking a game off each of these teams without a doubt. Just the way that these games get physical and everything else. This Steelers team, I'm higher on this Steelers team, I feel like, than a lot of other people. I think that they are also a playoff contender going into this season, just for the infrastructure, and just Mike Tomlin's still never had a losing season. I don't think it starts this year either.
I love the value. Don't get me wrong. There's so many questions. The Steelers could be a dumpster fire. Mike Tomlin never losing season. Dumpster fire. What does that mean? 9-8, I guess. But maybe this. I think their floor is low, but their ceiling is high. They have a huge middle ground this year because losing Stephon Tuitt on that defensive line, the way the Steelers use their defensive ends is massive. He had 11 sacks last year. Cam Hayward's still a force, but now you're forcing Chris Wormley into that role. TJ Watt, maybe the best defender in the league. But then outside of that, Devin Bush, I should love him. He's good. I think he's a bit overrated. Miles Jack, they took a flyer on it, and their secondary is kind of a mess. Outside of Minka, it reminds me a bit of the Bengals secondary. So I guess we compare them to their, Levi Wallace, good signing there. I like Levi Wallace. Levi Wallace is not a bad number 2 corner, which is what he's going to be for the Steelers. Ahkello Witherspoon, though, is your one. I don't love that. Cam Sutton, maybe he can step up. Maybe Justin Lane or somebody, but outside of Minka, I don't love it. Terrell Edmonds, they re-signed for nothing, who's going to probably end up starting for them again and has been a dumpster fire. And offense, they're kind of set outside of quarterback. We like Mitch here. We're rooting for Mitch. We like Mitch, but I don't know. It's in a new situation after what Chicago did to him, not playing last year. With a quarterback battle, and immediately it's not like he has the job secure or anything. He dealt with some confidence stuff in Chicago. I hope in Buffalo it got fixed, but there's still questions as much as we like the guy.
For sure. And it is going to be interesting to see how that competition plays out, and just where where the priorities lie for the Steelers going into the year, I guess. I was really hoping it sounded like Malik Willis was the sure thing. Like all the mocks had Malik Willis to pick. We had heard that Tomlin was in love with him and everything else. And it feels like they went for the safe pick and picked Kenny Pickett, who was known coming out of this draft as the, I guess, most pro-ready guy, which always just is stupid to me because I don't care if you're pro-ready. Like, what are you going to look like in 2 years? The Josh Allen argument, I guess, all over again. Like, Josh Allen was nowhere pro-ready, and look where that's happened. Not that all these guys are going to turn into Josh Allen.
Remember another pro-ready quarterback the Steelers recently also took in the draft? Not a first round, but close. With Mason Rudolph, super pro-ready guy, ready to go. I mean,
ready. We can step in and be good. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, absolute steal.
It's a slippery slope to go down. Like you should be like, and if I was a GM, I would always be taking the swings, especially at the quarterback position, because you can end up in no man's land with a guy that's as Pickett. Like, what is Kenny Pickett's ceiling higher than what he is? Like, I could see him coming in and being solid, being like average, being Baker Mayfield average-esque, like doing well in certain spots and then letting you down in certain spots. I don't see him popping off the field though. I think that's the allure of Mitch and everything else is you get those. They're going to need impact plays. They're going to need those types of offensive impact plays that they didn't get last year. They couldn't get it last year. I mean, Ben couldn't throw the ball down the field more than 5 yards. We saw the way that they were running the offense this year. I don't know if Pickett brings that out. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe we're both underselling what we're going to see from Kenny Pickett, but it never felt like a good quarterback draft coming in. And so for them to take the swing on a guy, I feel like you should have taken the high ceiling guy and they didn't. So yeah, I'm hoping, and I just want Mitch to do well. I guess I'm being a little biased because I really do want Mitch to do well. And I think it would be more fun if Mitch got his little redemption arc and really threw a wrench into this division. But we'll see what happens. It's good. They're an interesting team just in itself because I think they're gonna be competitive no matter what. But like you said, so many question marks going into the year. What's Tomlin gonna do to fill those holes?
Yeah, or will they just duct tape it and figure it out along the way like they have been kind of doing recently? And post Roethlisberger era too. It's huge. It's like a
new
culture
era.
shift.
Yeah,
it's a new era. It's a culture shift. Like people are gonna feel that in the locker room. I mean, he's been there for 20 years. It's a big deal him leaving. Now it's probably it is a good thing, but now there's still question marks. You're dealing with all this stuff. I didn't even bring it up though. I am excited to see, the wide receiver room because I always get excited over young receivers, and I'm already a huge Deontay Johnson fan. I was a massive Calvin Austin fan coming into this draft. I was a big George Pickens guy. As long as George Pickens isn't punching people, he's gonna be a good football player in the NFL. Big if though. So I like the moves they made. The weapons you are giving to a quarterback are so friendly. Obviously, we'd even mention Pat Freiermuth.
Stud.
Whoever ends up starting for them, hopefully Mitch is going to have every opportunity to succeed. No excuses. But are either the guys going to be the guy? Are they just going to get, a rough intro with, this division's going to be so – it's going to be a feisty AFC North this year. I'm labeling it feisty. And it's just going to be wild. The value, though, at plus 850, it's incredible. Let's go, Mitch. I'm going to throw a flyer on it for our boy, Mitchie B.
I can't wait. Like, I'm going to be tuned in to whatever AFC North game is opposite of the Bills in the 1 o'clock window, most likely will be on one of my screens besides Red Zone, just because I can't wait for the draw that we're going to get from these teams. And just the games are always good. That is a great point about Roethlisberger leaving. It does a new era. Maybe that's why I'm so much more interested in it. Like, we basically grew up just knowing Ben Roth. Like, I remember Cordell Stewart a little bit and everything else, a little bit of Tommy Maddox, whatever. But
I had a Tommy Maddox jersey.
Did you really? That's
I was a Steelers fan before I was a Bills fan.
Well,
I was really young because I was like,
you.
oh, Bills suck. I don't want to do this. Oh, I like the Steelers colors. Let me be a fan.
Hey, it is great. Underrated about Pittsburgh, the color coordination is incredible. Like no other city does it like that. All right, so before we wrap up, I'm gonna put you on the spot. Who is your pick to win the AFC North?
I'm gonna go with the Baltimore Ravens. Let's just say they stay healthy this year. Let's say Lamar Jackson is happy regardless his contract situation. This team could win 13 games. 14 games, maybe.
I am right in line with you. I think that the Ravens are going to compete for the 1 seed with the Bills and the Chiefs, and be right back where they belong. I think Lamar Jackson. We talk about contract years on Happy Hours and basketball all the time, with guys like show out during their contract year and really put up numbers and get paid. Like Julius Randle. Go look at Julius Randle's Pro Basketball Reference, and that's the definition of a contract year. Lamar Jackson in a contract year, whoo, man, like he's gonna come out balling. I think MVP candidate. I'm going with the Ravens as well. Bonus question: what is the Buffalo Bills record against the AFC North this year?
The Buffalo Bills AFC North, our record is going to be 3-1 because
who's the loss?
We are going to lose to the Cleveland Browns.
Oh man, if they lose at home to the Browns, bro,
it's going to be terrible.
It's going to be terrible.
We're going to flashbacks. It's going to be 6-3, like the Jake Delhomme game.
Oh, that game! I remember that game so vividly. I was in Cleveland for the last. I wasn't at the game, but I was in a Cleveland bar with Zubaz on and everything else during the last game where Hauschka missed the kick. One of the worst experiences of my life. I had a 5-3 Browns fan in front of me who just kept turning around and talking shit about Josh Allen and saying how much Baker Mayfield was better. And I would love to have a conversation with that guy today. I really would. But he really wanted to fight me. He really wanted to, like, I got barked at by a lot of grown men that day as well. So I'm really hoping we return the favor back in Buffalo. I was hoping that would be a night game too. Those Browns felt lit right for a night game. I'm going 4-0. Fuck it. I don't want them to lose any of these AFC North teams. So
let's go.
That's my hope. That's my hope. But I would say that Bengals game worries me towards the end of the year, especially if the Bengals are like a desperate team trying to make the playoffs and such. That could be Monday Night Football finale too. That's going to be some fanfare behind that.
Yeah, that's gonna that like you said, we might see a desperate Bengals team. We might see a comfortable Bills team. Bengals can make things happen. Jamar Chase, I just don't want to play. I just don't want to play against him ever. I don't care.
No.
Trey White could be back 100% healthy. I love you, Trey. I'm just terrified of him.
I am terrified as well. But it's going to be a fun season. Like we said at the beginning of this, always fun when Buffalo matches up with the AFC North. And it's going to be a blast again. So that's it for the Crowd Assist podcast. Follow me on Twitter at your friend Jake. Follow Meerkat at MeerkatCat. Go to Outlet Liquor, New York's only outlet liquor. When you need to stock up, it's the place to buy a case. What's your outlet? So for Meerkat, this is your friend Jake. This is the Crowd Assist podcast. Have a great night, folks. Enjoy the rest of your weekend.